Assalamu alaikum. I want to try to today give a really translation for a khatara that I gave yesterday at the center. And basically, it is to try to explain something that I personally, for years, wanted to try to understand, and that is when we read the surah, Surah Al-Qadr, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ. Allah says that we have sent the book in Laylat al-Qadr. How does that square with the fact that the Quran came down munajjam over 23 years, and the ayah وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الْقُرْآنُ جُمْلَةً وَاحِدَةً كَذَلِكَ لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. The translation is, those that the disbelievers say, why isn't this book given to him in one installment? We have decided to do that, Allah says, to give you a firm belief. لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ وَرَتِّلْهُ تَرْتِيلًا. Now, the explanation to try to really square these two ayat together is to understand the difference between anzala and nazala. And that's why it's important sometimes to translate these things to English, because it would be virtually impossible to pick up on this without understanding that Allah uses every, not just word, every letter in the Quran in a very precise way that we should really be careful to do what's called tadabbur, to analyze. So the difference in that, in Surah Al-Qadr, Allah says أنزلناه في ليلة القدر, and in the other ayah they say قال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليه القرآن نزل. So أنزل and نزل. So this is really the explanation. Anytime you read أنزل, which has Hamza, it really means that it was made into a format that you as a human being can understand. And that's why anytime you see an ayah that says أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ, then it will be followed by أَنزَلَ. أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَنزَلَ, which means Allah is telling you, can't you see that He gave you, أَلَمْ تَرَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَجَعَلْنَاهُ فَأَنْبَتْنَا بِهِ حَدَائِقَ ذَاتَ بَهْجَةٍ. For example, Allah sent us water, and then you have gardens, beautiful gardens that have grown from that water. Anytime that you see anzala, it means that it is something that was put in a format that you can understand. And that's exactly why إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ فِي لَيْلَةِ الْقَدْرِ means that Allah has made the Quran into a format that we can understand. And the proof is that in another ayah Allah says إِنَّا جَعَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا, and then إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَاهُ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا. So جَعَلَ means that it was something else before. Allah, لِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, is not Arabic. Allah gave us the Quran in Arabic. We have to understand this. So Allah made the Quran into a format that we can understand in Laylat al-Qadr. And that's why أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وجعلناه قرآنا عربيا وأنزلناه قرآنا عربيا. They all basically will support each other, that Allah in Laylat al-Qadr transformed the Quran في السماء العلى into a format that we can understand. The second step is the part where Al-Amin Jibreel, the angel Jibreel, started bringing those installments from the Quran and bringing them to the Prophet over the span of 23 years. And that's why Allah says that He gave it to the Prophet in installments, لِنُثَبِّتَ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. And of course, when the Quran came down, it didn't come down as a book. It came down as dhikr, sawti, vocal. Now, this is really important, because once you really understand the difference between anzala and nazala, you will see that when you read it somewhere else, that anzala means it was put into a format that you can understand as a human being, that you can comprehend. And nazala is something that you will not understand because it's outside of your conscious ability to understand, your cognitive ability, I should say, to understand. So the process can be like, I can give it as an example. You know, if you think of the World Cup, for example, that was like, you know, a tournament that was played in Qatar, but we watched it on TV here. Now the process, how it was, you know, changed from videos being taken in Qatar and sent to us, is a process that we will not understand, you know, for the layman of us, like myself. But then we eventually saw it on TV. So there was Inzal in a format that we understand. So that Inzal is what Allah is referring to as the Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil Qadr. And you see how when you start knowing the difference between Inzal and Tanzeel, I can give you other ayat and ask you, you know, is this going to have anzala or nazala? And most of the time you're going to get it right. For example, Inna blank Qur'anan hukman Arabiyan. Is it anzalnahu or nazalnahu hukman Arabiyan? If you go back, you'll find that it's Inna anzalnahu hukman Arabiyan, because it's a Arabi law, hukm Arabi. So it's a hukm that you understand. So it has to be inzal. So you go back, you find that there's inzal and tanzeel that relate to the Quran, inzal and tanzeel that relate to the al-man wa salwa, inzal and tanzeel that relate to the malaika, and you will only find that there is inzal lil-hadid and there's only inzal lil-libasan wa risha. And if you look at any of the ayat that have alam tara anna, you will find that it has anzala, anna Allah anzala, because Allah is telling you, didn't you see or can't you see that Allah gave you so and so, and you will find that it has inzal. It's not just about, you know, explaining that really kind of discrepancy that a lot of people struggled with. And I've heard, you know, from a lot of scholars, of course, you know, this is ijtihad and some people might have a different opinion, but if you really go back and now start reading the Quran with the understanding of the difference between Inzal and Tanzeel, one, you will appreciate how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so precise when He gives us these examples. And you will see that now all of a sudden a lot of the things will make sense. For example, if you go back to Surah Fussilat, إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة. Why? Because they don't see them. So it's Tanzeel. This is completely different than if they, you know, see the malaika. Because Kafirin said, you know, that they wanted the Prophet to you know, why wasn't he a malak? Allah said, وَلَوْ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مَلَكًا. So if Allah sent him in a format that people could see, He used the word أنزلناه. So it's a fascinating, really, you know, I guess, distinction that when you really know the difference, you will feel how you know, amazing, miraculous this Quran is, and that is very important when we do tadabbur, you know, to analyze these ayat, which is something that we have to do. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. ولو in another ayah that Allah says, لو كان من عند غير الله لوجدوا فيه اختلافا كثيرا. If it was from anybody else other than Allah, you will find that it would have a lot of discrepancies. So ask Allah to give us knowledge and to give us benefit from that knowledge. And I hope that you know, you have inshallah عشر أواخر مباركة وتقبل الله منا ومنكم الصيام والقيام. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.